To Alexa Singh, who's the editor in charge of Reuters Wider Image, and she's going to chair tonight's discussion with Zalmaï. Before I do that, if I can ask you to switch your phones to wait for the microphone, because we're recording this evening. Also, afterwards, you are very welcome to buy a copy of the book. I'll be selling them, so just come up to me and I'll give you one. So over to Alexa.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome Zalmaï. Award-winning photographer and author of this beautiful book on Afghanistan, Dread and Dreams. Okay. So the book focuses on the plight of the Afghani people post 9/11, post fall of the Taliban, post re-emergence of the Taliban.
Yes.
And you yourself are Afghani.
Yes.
So maybe you can start by telling us a little bit about your upbringing in Afghanistan and how you then moved to being a photographer.
I don't want to talk too much about myself, but I think for people to understand what I'm doing is important to know who I am. I was born in Afghanistan, and in 1980, when the Russian invaded Afghanistan, I had to leave with my family, like 5 million Afghans at that time, and somehow I end up in Switzerland where I grew up, and I become a photographer. But just before that, I was interested in photography even in Afghanistan. It seems
From a very young age.
As a teenage,
Okay.
yes, I was drawing very good, and
A good start.
a good start,
It's
yes.
an eye.
At some point, I had my uncle. He was amateur photographer in Afghanistan in 1975, and he get married, and he he didn't know what to do with all his darkroom because the space of the house was small, and he gave it to me every. He knew I was interested in photography, and I was 13 or 14 the first time I film, and I set up on a small bathroom and my house in Afghanistan, my first dark room, and the first time when I saw appearing a picture front in a dark room, that was amazing for me, and at that time I photography until today.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that the war came in Afghanistan, and we had to leave. With
Do
my
you
family.
Do you remember leaving?
Of course, I remember
Yeah.
leaving. It was kind of a very difficult time for me to. Actually, when you're a teenage, I had a very ordinary life in Afghanistan with my family and school, and my grandma, my aunt, uncle, these things. And suddenly everything changed, and Russian invaded Afghanistan, and my father was working in the government. At that time, I was a little bit tall for my age. A few months later, the Red Army with the Afghan army, they start taking all the young Afghans for the army and going in the front line again. And my father was like, "You cannot
Gotta
be,
get out."
you cannot be
Yeah.
a soldier, and we have to put you out of the country." And he did everything to bring me out of the country with my brother. My older brother, he was also, and we had to leave. At that time, the Afghan government didn't give us the permission to leave from Afghanistan because they needed all the young.
Right.
And we had to leave by walk through Afghan-Pakistani border. I don't want to go into detail, but it was the worst time of my life.
How old were you?
I was 15.
Right.
And that was the first time I left.
So you'd had a very comfortable sort of middle-class existence in Afghanistan up to that point,
I mean,
and suddenly you're a refugee.
at that point you are not even refugee. You don't even know what is refugee, but that. But you have to leave the country, and my father one day came and said, "Okay, you have to leave," and I didn't know. And I asked them, "You're gonna come with us?" He said, "No, no, you have to leave alone with your brother." And that was kind of shocking for me. And any things happened, and we had to. The day arrived, and we had to leave. And I remember a very disturbing image of leaving the house and to see my parents crying. My father, I never saw my father crying, but I saw him at that day crying, and I didn't know if I'm gonna see them again or not. And for them was anyway. The journey took 8 days. The south of Afghanistan through the. I don't know if some of you know about Afghanistan. It's from Kandahar to Quetta, and we had to walk at night because during the day was Russian helicopter was patrolling all the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan, and they were shooting everyone, and we had to go anyway. At one point we arrived. Here's a mountain, there's a mountain, and the middle is kind of a small mud house. It's the border, and at that point I realized actually the border is it's not real actually. And I look at my right side is Afghanistan, my left side is Pakistan, and it's the middle of nowhere. And suddenly I become a little bit more quiet. It's like, other side is people are also living. And I think this is very important. And realize the war doesn't stop in Afghanistan or in my city, but the war is like everywhere, I think. And then we went to Pakistan, India, and I had my aunt. She is Swiss, and she used to live in Afghanistan for 27 years. She fell in love with my uncle on 57. My uncle was a student in Switzerland, and she went to Afghanistan, and she was in Afghanistan for 27 years. And when she saw the Russian, he said, "I don't like the communists. I go back to my country, Switzerland."
And that's
then
where
she did everything to bring us there.
bring you back there, yeah. And so then you're a teenager in Switzerland, and did you know, as you were growing up there, that you wanted to go back to Afghanistan, or was the drive more to be a photographer and to see the world? And
no, at that time I didn't want to go back to Afghanistan. No. I was so traumatized by what I I experienced when I was living, and I didn't want to go back. But the desire to be a photographer, yes. The first things I did in Switzerland, I went to school of photography where I study, and I wanted to be a photographer because I had always this dream to be a photographer. Before the war in Afghanistan, we had some newspaper magazine like National Geographic, all those, and I was looking this magazine, and I was like, how is wonderful, beautiful this planet. I wanted to see it one day, but I didn't know if I can see it, because at that time, for being Afghan and dreaming to do a international career with the photography was impossible. But somehow, with the Swiss situation, it's happened. Yeah.
So then in 2001, the fall of the Taliban, the post 9/11 US invasion, suddenly everybody's looking at Afghanistan. Did you go back at that time?
When I finished my school, I tried to travel around the world, and I spent a few years traveling alone, probably 6-7 months a year, 20 different countries. I was working on another book. My first book actually was called Eclipse, and I was looking what's meaning of being a nomad, and because at that time I felt I lost my country, my family, and everything.
You didn't feel Swiss. You didn't.
No, I
feel
didn't feel Swiss. I didn't feel Afghan. I didn't.
So you could understand that concept of being a nomad.
Yeah, I mean, understanding. I try to understand. Yes, and because of that, I went to, for example, to Africa. I spent like 3 months with the pygmies inside of the jungle, eating monkeys and snakes, trying to understand what is. To be not belong to any place, and then I went to north of south of Chad to see the Pearl, it's other nomad people, and then I went to south of Philippines to see the Bachos, the Sea Gypsies.
And this was as a photographer, or
as a photographer,
okay.
always as a photographer. That was all before 2001, and in 2001. When the horrible situation, things happened in US, I was in Perpignan for photojournalism, and with my friend Jimmy Wolford from Newsweek, and he said, Zalmaï, you should get ready and you have to go now. And I said, I don't want to go because I'm really, I'm scared to go in Afghanistan because I know.
Why were you scared?
Because my experience of
the trauma,
the trauma of the war and soldiers and destruction and helicopters, tanks and all those things, and I was really, I didn't want to go. And he said, "This is time to have to go." Okay, and then I went to from Switzerland to Tajikistan to Afghanistan, and funny because that was the first time I was with so many different media, TV crew, photographer, journalists, whatever, and we were almost 500 people. We met a convoy of, I don't know, like 150 cars, and going to Afghanistan. And I was wondering why people, because the Taliban was in Afghanistan at that time, they were destroying Afghanistan. People, and nobody was giving any attention of this. And one other thing, this was difficult for me to understand. What, the international community used Afghan people to fight against Red Army in Afghanistan for 10 years. They sent billions of dollars to arm in Afghanistan. And when the Afghan people did the job, I mean, withdraw the Russian army. Yeah. All the planet suddenly said, "Oh, now
we don't care."
No, the problem is your problem is not our problem, and everybody left, and that is the disaster consequence in 1989 when the Russian left from Afghanistan, and all the planet said, "The Afghan problem is Afghan problem. It's not our problem."
This seems to be part of the history of Afghanistan that when the world's eyes are on Afghanistan when the conflict spills over into other nations, but then once that's over, they're forgotten. And this is something that I think you felt strongly about in doing this book, was that there'd been these years of the US invasion, if you want to call it that, and the portrayal by the media that was very much focused on the American troops, right? And I think with this book, you wanted to show something that was more about what had actually happened to the people.
Yeah, when I went back to cover the fall of the Taliban, and even at that time, I was shooting for Newsweek, and of course they were looking for soldiers, special force, and all action pictures. And I was going back to Afghanistan, and I saw a country totally destroyed. People were suffering, and even at that time, nobody was giving any attention on the Afghan people. We are just looking. Something happened in other side of the planet, the consequences in Afghanistan, but still we are just trying to see how we respond to this at that time. But nobody cares about Afghan people, and I decided to work on Afghan, and my editor in New York asked me, like, can you find some soldiers? Can you find? And I said, I'm not here to. We were 4 photographers to cover all Afghanistan, and I said, I try to do what is going on with the population, and maybe the other photographer, the war photographer, they like the front line, they can go, but I try. And unfortunately, when I went back after 8 weeks in Afghanistan, went back to New York, Newsweek finally they said they saw the work, and they said the picture editor was very happy, the photo department was very happy, but when we went higher than the chief editor, and it's like, who cares about Afghan people?
Yeah. Do you want to show some pictures? And
Okay, now I'm gonna just show you some of picture from 2001, 2004, and I covered the, how I can say, the happiness of the Afghan people at that time. All international media was looking to see the soldiers, but I tried to show what was happening. I show you just a few pictures. It's my first book about Afghanistan, is Return Afghanistan. Here's just, you understand, like the way I just cover the little bit the story.
Am I in the way? Do I need to move back? Is that okay? No? Okay.
Like this picture is in Kandahar. This is a brick factory, and a few months after the fall of Taliban, everybody went back to rebuild the country. We were talking about the Buddha destroy, and this image can explain you what is the oil and past and
They've
present.
replaced the Buddha with something
the oil,
more important
yes.
for
For diesel, yes.
Yeah.
And at that time, you know, when the Russian invaded Afghanistan, Afghan people were more exiled people in all the planet, 7 million people. And from 2001, 2004, 5 million Afghans went back to Afghanistan to start their lives. And that was covering this.
What year are we looking at here, Zalmaï, again?
This is 2002, 2003.
Okay.
And this is all the people, they went back to Afghanistan, and that was the first harvest.
Because the Taliban had fallen and they suddenly felt that it was safe for them to come back. Okay.
And this is in Peshawar in Pakistan. There's all these refugees, they are coming back. And of course, it was very difficult to publish this work because
people weren't interested in seeing this point of view.
No, the people were more interested to see action pictures. I mean, Hollywood-style action.
The glamorous kind of pictures that you see on the embed of the young soldiers. And
yes, yeah. I mean, try to justify what we are doing there. You know. And this is.
Was this work published? Was this from your first book, or?
This is from my first book.
Yeah.
Yes, I was able to publish this as a book, not with the United Nations, UNHCR, High Commissioner for Refugees, and I was able to publish some of them in American media. Yeah. And okay, now we have just to stop to. And from 2004, 2007, I was just covering the story of Afghanistan, and I was kind of based in Afghanistan, not always. Like I was 2 months, because I'm sure you can imagine it's very stressful, difficult to be a war zone. And I was doing my work. I was working with the NGOs, United Nations, ICRC, UNHCR, UNDC, Time, Newsweek, New Yorker, and all those things. And at some point, I realized is we are misunderstanding Afghanistan. And I decided to start another project. I didn't know the title at that time. The title of the book, Dread and Dreams, has become now. But I felt it was very important to show what was happening in Afghanistan, and I started shooting again black and white.
And when you start, so did you have this project in your mind when you started shooting this? Was a book in your mind, or was it more that you felt that you wanted to?
Essentially, I don't want to say yes, I had the idea of the book, but I felt I have to do something.
This was something that you needed to do. This is something that people weren't seeing.
Yeah, I mean, which form, that was something become later, you know. But the first, you have to, the perception of what is happening in Afghanistan, I think was very important for me to realize or to analyze or to understand. As I was in Afghanistan, I was born in Afghanistan and I grew up at some point of my life, which means I knew a little bit of the story of Afghanistan. And when I was seeing all my friends, photographers from New York, London, Paris, Tokyo, they were coming in Afghanistan, and the only things they were dreaming to be embedded with the military. And I think it's a trap for us as a photographer or journalist or media being embedded with the military, because how you can tell a story when you're embedded with the military? Military have one point of view, very different than other one, and they bring the photographer, the media, and try to show what they are doing. Actually, we are working. We don't even realize, actually, my friends or my colleagues, they don't even realize that we are used by military or by a politician to make the public opinion. And for that, to justify what we are doing, we need pictures, we need concrete things. And because of that, I think and first war in Iraq was very difficult to be embedded. But after the American army decided to bring the photographer, but I always refused to. Anytime I had a proposition from magazine, newspaper, we need soldiers, I said, this is not really my specialty, and if I can do something else about Afghan people, it's much better. But of course, I went. I was embedded with British soldier and Americans, and to understand my story, to understand what was happening, I felt it was to have some picture from the military. And like this picture, you can see it can be in the moon or somewhere in one Afghan. This one is like, what is this? What is going on? And this is the reality of the Afghanistan today also. And the British soldier there, you feel like is an astronaut.
Yeah.
And the distance between the army and the people, you know, that I think the army must understand to. I decided to not putting caption in my book because I believe on photography. I believe the power of the photography. And for example, here you can understand, like this Afghan kids, the donkeys looking. What is this?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't need really caption to understand that.
Yeah, he's like some kind of alien space trooper. That's
In the reality of Afghanistan, 30 years of war. And I have, it's a little bit difficult to see those pictures, but those pictures was shot in moonlight in south of Afghanistan with the British Army. I choose those pictures because I wanted to show how it was absurd, how was disconnected what they were doing in Afghanistan and what was, the disconnection between the army and the population.
So this is kind of, you're shooting this, it gives you this feeling that you're one of the people sitting on the ground looking, and this gives you that, right?
Yeah, yeah. I was sharing the point of view of the soldiers. Yeah. And this is early in the morning, and yeah. And going door by door inside of Afghan houses, and I'm sure you understand how is sensitive in Afghanistan to the culture, Afghan culture. You know, you cannot really go, but sometimes probably the people don't understand really.
So you have this. You're Afghan. You understand the culture. You understand the language. It must have been a strange situation for you to be embedded, and have to be from the point of view of the soldiers, knowing what it must have felt like to the people that, you know.
Essentially, yes. I had a very surrealist situation, and with I was embedded with 6 weeks in Helmand province with the British, and I became friend with Commander Mike. He was the commander of the unity. I was with them. We had a lot of talk, because during the day we were patrolling, and during the night we had time to talk. And he was telling me, you know, we don't have the force to occupy all Afghanistan. It's difficult. He said, I wish to have more power to extend all this area we were securing. And it was funny, and I said, you know, Mike, what are you doing? During the day we are going patrol, and at night we're coming back in the base, and the Taliban, they're around the base, and they put IEDs.
Yeah.
And he said to me, do you want to take some pictures at night? You want us to wait for them? And I said, why not? And the next day he mobilized 170 commando for me, for the one I did those pictures.
Up.
Yes, this is all those pictures. But okay, when we were doing our patrol, we didn't see any Taliban at that time. And these pictures and the consequence of the war on Afghanistan, you know, since 2001 until now. Just before that, we had 7 million people exiled. And now, since 2001, 2002, there's almost 700,000 people displaced inside Afghanistan because of the war. And essentially, I didn't see any report about this in the newspaper magazine, nothing. And I decided to cover this and try to tell the story of the people. And this is exactly from Helmand. And he couldn't stay in his village, and he had to went to Kabul to survive. And even in Kabul, at that time, there was 900 NGOs. You can imagine 900 NGOs in Kabul, and everybody tried to save Afghans. But at the same time, it's kind of difficult to help, because 900 NGOs, 900 point of view of the same problem.
Yeah.
And I mean, it doesn't go far away. You know, you can give some small things, but deeply you cannot fix the country.
So when you're shooting these pictures, are you speaking in Dari, in Farsi? How is that going? That you look like a Western guy, you turn up with the camera, but you're not. You're from Afghanistan. How did you negotiate that kind of relationship with the Afghani people?
I had all kind of situation. Sometimes it was for my advantage because I was able to talk in Farsi, and in some other place maybe not, because they were saying like, oh, when the Afghanistan needed you, you left and you had a very peaceful life in Europe, and now you're coming back.
Did you find you could justify that with what you were trying to do through your photography?
Yes, I tried to explain them, you know, and I said I don't have to come back in Afghanistan. I had a beautiful life in Europe, but I care about what is going on here. Because of that I'm here, and I'm here to bring your voice. And in many places the people understood, like, okay, I can trust you. I can, because other media outlet, they are coming and they are asking questions, but when we see the result, actually they change our purpose and they do the things they want. At least with you, you understand what is going on in this country, because you are one of them, and I'm sure you're going to be more honest than other people. And I promise them I will be honest, and I'm not going to change anything. I'm going to bring your voice as far as I can. Yeah. And that was my mission for them. And most of the time people understood that. And of course, after being embedded with the British is one thing, but most of the time I was embedded with the people. And when the people understand what are you doing, and they help you. Sincerely, they help you. They don't expect from you anything. They don't. And most of the time I told them, like, I'm here to help you, but I'm not gonna help you directly today.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna bring a clinic here. I'm not gonna bring a hospital. I'm not gonna bring money. But your voice is very important. If you understand that, this is my responsibility to bring your voice outside, but the other people are gonna fix the problem, not me.
Yeah.
Not you understand that, and most of the people understand that. This picture is one of all other displaced people in the south of Afghanistan. The picture is gonna come later. I want to just to show you how it's two different planets under the same area. And that is kind of a situation when you start losing the reality of what is happening there, why we are there, what we are doing, who are those people, what is their needs. We are here for fighting, we are here to helping. I think I felt a lot of confusion in an international community in Afghanistan.
So I guess as well, Zalmaï, with the book, that's what you were trying to do, is give a voice in some way of what was happening for the Afghan people. The image before with these soldiers looking very kind of glamorous and sitting around is an example of what typically people were seeing in the media.
I try to humanize. Yeah. I think this is one word I use a lot. Humanizing a problem, humanizing a conflict. I think most of the time when you read the headline here, it's like, oh, it's an explosion, 10 people died, 5 people, and then we count the number of the dead. But we don't really ask question of why they are dying, why, what. And I think that is the most, it's very important to ask question. And this picture, for me, it's just showing how the Afghan people went back. You go back to the school, and when you send your child to school, which means you believe in the future, you know, it's not about surviving, living, and that was for me important to highlight the hope of Afghanistan. This is a picture, I like it because you guy, he's falling or he's trying to stand up. That is exactly the situation in Afghanistan right now. It's up to you. Sometimes I like that picture, it can talk with itself. Tonight I'm talking to you about my all the time when I'm not with my pictures. I love when the pictures talk
Yeah.
for themselves. This picture is, I'm gonna just tell you a little bit of story about this picture, and then we go to other section. In 2012, New York, I was in Kabul, and New Yorker magazine, they called me and they said, we have a big piece coming about Afghanistan, as the NATO force gonna withdraw from Afghanistan in the end of 2014. This is a piece of 16 pages about what is gonna happen in Afghanistan. And my assignment was not what is happening in Afghanistan, what in Afghanistan. That was a probably more challenging, more difficult assignment I had in my life. And at the same time, here is very important to your background, your understanding. Where are you? What are you doing? What's going to be the future of this country? I could take a picture of, I don't know, maybe a happy picture or a sad picture or something. No, I take a car and I went to different parts of Afghanistan and I asked questions. And most of the people say, you know, we have since 35 years a war, but we are not afraid, but we hope what the international community did in 1989 when the Russian withdraw from Afghanistan, everybody abandoned Afghanistan, and we saw the disaster consequence of until 2001, 9/11. And this person was telling me, look, I was displaced by here. Just to understand, this is center of Afghanistan and Bamiyan province, where the Hazara was very persecuted by the Taliban. And this person, he said, you know, I was displaced twice. The Taliban destroyed my house twice, but right now I'm building another one. And he was carrying this stone of the foundation of his house.
He was literally doing it stone by stone with his own hands.
Stone by stone. And for me, that was totally the essence of what is Afghanistan today.
Right.
Yeah. It's the, you know, the 10 or 15,000, I don't know, according to the media, maybe it's 20,000 Taliban in Afghanistan, but in Afghanistan is 30 million people. You cannot just say all Afghan, they are Taliban, or they hate progress, they hate foreigners. No, it's 20,000 people. 20,000 people can destroy a country for sure. But 29 point, the rest, they are dreaming to have a better life, a normal life. And we are just arriving a normal life. And this is this section of color picture, dreamy color picture of Afghanistan is when you're in Afghanistan, you see two different things. One, you can see two different things. One is war, destruction, military, whatever. Other side is the daily life of the ordinary people. And I don't understand why my other colleagues, photographer, media, they don't really cover the hope of Afghanistan, the way people are hoping. Maybe good news is no news, bad news is good news.
Yeah.
I mean, this is kind of, we have to figure it out.
Yeah.
But this is, for me, this kind of...
So this is, and so just to explain, this is, the book is created within this format that as we're moving through the slideshow, this is how you've put together the book.
Yeah, almost it's the same. Not everything, but at least to understand the concept of what I try to do on this book. In this section, it's very important for me to show people are living, people are alive, people are dreaming, and this is something we miss. I think the perception of the planet, probably since 500 years, we we look this planet the same way all the time. And today, I think we have to realize the planet we saw 500 years ago, 300 years ago is not the same today. And today we have to change the perception of the way we're seeing the planet. And I think if we change, I think it's going to make much closer people to each other than put a distance. Right now, the way we are doing is more distance, more distance, more distance, misunderstanding all the time.
Yeah. So this section is giving you a different connection to the Afghan people rather than a kind of Western point of view of these poor people. You know, this is actually saying then it's not so different.
I mean, I travel almost 93 different countries. More I travel, more I discover this planet, more we are the same. This planet, we think it's very big. Actually, when you travel, it's shrinking, 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 shrinking. It becomes very small. Actually, we are all the same. But we have to accept, we have to understand we are all the same. But we have a different style of life and we have a different point of view. That is something we miss. Yeah, probably this kind of picture the Taliban doesn't like, but it's there, yes.
But it's important, I think, like you say, to show that 20,000 Taliban doesn't mean that you look at Afghanistan in one way. So
yeah, but unfortunately, those 20,000 people, or 15 or 20,000 people, give the image of a country, a population of 30 million people. And we cannot judge through, I mean, we have to understand that. Okay, now we are coming back to Afghanistan. Unfortunately, I wish to be able to continue my color work, which means the war was over, and now we are starting another life.
Yeah.
But right now it's not really like this. If you can see, this is the Kabul is built up in the top of the cemetery.
cemetery, right?
Not much to say. Maybe this is one other picture. It's not a good picture the way I think, but it's interesting because you know, when the 5 million refugee went back to Afghanistan, the Afghan government and international community, they said, okay, we have to somehow to have some resettlement, helping the people with some land. This is in Jalalabad, outside of Jalalabad, 35 kilometers from the city, where there's no water, no trees, nothing. How are we gonna help those people?
Nice.
I mean, and international community pay for that, but it was empty. In the book, I was trying to talk about this silent wars in Afghanistan, not the loud war we can see, helicopter shooting and everything, but the silent war of pain, misery. Each house in Afghanistan today, lack of medicine, lack of clinics, education, road, drinking water. This is another war, silent war is killing much more than in the front line. And I was a little bit of this. That is the ICRC hospital in Kabul, the God factory, because they are building every day hundreds of arms and legs
right.
for the people get injured. when you see this, there are like 100,000 of them. This is another picture I'm interested. This is a young Afghan army soldier. He is from the north. He was deployed in the south of Afghanistan with the I think it was with the American soldiers, and he get injured because he was ambushed by the Taliban with the American. Two of his friends died. He was severely injured. He went back to condos at his house, and he was telling me, like, look, I gave my life for this government, for this, try to help my country. I get injured. Now they don't even give me my salary as a former soldier. You should tell the people, like, I gave my life, but nobody gave me for food for me. What do you expect about this situation like this? And the same thing, all this civilian injured, displaced. This is another picture. I have only one dead in all the book. If the people like action, blood, military, this is not my book. But here it's one picture. I felt it was very important to show this because this is one young Afghan. He was in Helmand province and he couldn't leave because of the Taliban. He had to leave, take the road from Afghanistan, exile to Europe. And unfortunately, he crossed Pakistan, Iran, Turkey, and he was between Turkey and Greece. And one day their boat sunk, and there were 23 Afghan in the best boat. One survived, and this guy, he died. And I was in Kabul, and the family received the dead body. That was the first time the family discovered the dead body of, which means this Afghan conflict is not only, the pain is not only in Afghanistan, but it's outside also. And I'm sure every day, if you can see your newspaper, magazine, we rescued 3,000 people south of Italy or in Greece. But those people leave from their home because of war, not because they try to have a better life. And we have to understand about that also. I'm sure you know, all of you, the Buddha of Bamiyan. The reconstruction in Afghanistan didn't work well. We spent $800 billion in Afghanistan, mostly for military. I think not even 10% of this money was for the reconstruction. And most of projects working in Afghanistan, it's private, which means the Afghan, they were exiled in Iran or in Dubai or in US. They bring back their money and try to rebuild. Everything is by hand. This is a canal for the irrigation.
And this project up to 2014, was it? No.
Sorry?
How long does this project span? When 2008 to 2013?
I was shooting this story about 2008 and 2013.
Right, okay.
Another problem in Afghanistan is drug addict. Of course, every day you can hear about Afghanistan is the first producer of opium, heroin in the planet. But and today, nobody talk about drug user in Afghanistan. This huge problem. If you look in Kabul only, nobody knows exactly how many people live in Kabul right now. But when I was young, at 14 years old, was almost 300,000 people. Now it's like 5 or 6 million people. They went back to, and there was not much drug addict, and all this drug addict coming from Iran and Pakistan, and it became a huge problem in Afghan society. Like in Kabul today is 60,000 drug addicts, and they have one hospital to help them, and they have 12 bed. And most of the people end up like this. If you can see, this is very young people. When I went to, this is the former Russian culture center in Kabul. And you see all these young kids shooting themselves. You ask question, how we gonna fix a country when the young generation is denying what they can do? And each door you open in Afghanistan today, there is pain, misery, suffering. Instantly, emotionally, for me was too difficult. Since a year and a half, I didn't went back to Afghanistan because it was too much for me.
Yeah.
It was too much.
So is this going to be your last work in Afghanistan then? Or at least for
At
the
least for now,
foreseeable
yeah. I think
future?
what I wanted to say, I said, but I don't want to repeat I wish I stopped my work on 2013, and I said, I wish to be able to say, oh, the story is over,
Happy
everything
ending.
is happy,
Yeah.
and I stop. But I made the decision to stop this work because it's necessary to show what is happening in Afghanistan. And that's the last picture is give you a little bit of the feeling in Afghanistan. What's going to happen, what's going to not happen.
Right.
I think that's it.
Yeah. How are we for time, Millicent? Are we okay? Okay.
What time is it?
Right.
Okay.
Thank you for that, Zalmaï. That's the book. That's done now. What about, what are you up to now? What other projects are you doing? You say that you haven't been able to leave it on a happy ending, but obviously you're an independent photographer. You have to make your living. Could you talk a bit about, well, first of all, how is it being an independent photographer? No agency. Who are the clients? How do you go about it? And then also, what are the kind of projects that you are passionate about now?
Essentially, today, being a freelance photographer is very difficult. You have to be ready to give up on many things in your life. If you care about something, if you believe about something. And I didn't want to be part of any agency. I had a lot of opportunities and I have proposition, but I'm always, I don't want to really to do the things they ask me. I prefer to tell this. Most of the time, like the agencies or publication, they are using photographer. They are imagining a picture and then they send a photographer somewhere in the world. I'm not talking about Afghanistan, I'm talking about every. And
They're not interested in your vision. They have perspective that they're hiring you.
Yes, I mean,
shoot.
they have when they're sitting in office.
Sorry, I have to butt in and say that, that we only chose photographers because of their vision. We never.
This is Cheryl, by the way, who is the picture editor of the Telegraph magazine.
Commission somebody. I've got a really loud voice. Before we commission somebody, we commission them because of their vision, not because we had something in our mind that we wanted them to recreate.
Yeah, hope.
So
probably.
I'm sorry to stop you.
Yeah, no,
No,
but
just to say,
you know,
Cheryl
to
itself
support
is a
the
photo
industry a
editor
little bit,
coming from
which
that
is, you know,
perspective.
is
yeah, but I'm talking about my experience. Like, I hope everybody was doing you, but unfortunately, it's not like you. I had a request from an American magazine. I don't want to say the name, but they said, we want an Afghan woman with a baby crying. And I was like, how am I going to find this? I mean, should I create this or
Pinch them
pitch
hard.
th-
It
like,
normally works.
what? And I said, I'm sorry, that is not really type
Yeah.
of work I do. If you have another person you want to willing to do this, you should ask, because I'm not gonna ask a mom and make cry the baby and I take a picture and you put on a cover and justify what we are doing there. No, it's not mine.
Has that affected your career then? I mean, if you've always been a photographer that comes very strongly with this idea of wanting to tell a certain story, have you found clients or organisations that you've been able to work with that have, because you've been a successful photographer for
Yeah, no, I had all kind of different experience, but most of the time I prefer to propose what I'm doing when I'm in the field, when I'm in Africa or in South America or in Asia or in Afghanistan. And it's like, this is something I think is very important. We should do something about this. I'll give you an example. I was I was in Greece and for 5 years ago, and I saw what was happening about all the immigration situation in Greece and all this Golden Dawn and all the xenophobia was going there. Nobody gave attention on this, and as a photographer, as a person, as a human, I saw this and I said, I have to do. And I spent 3 years of working on this, and I tried to call European media, not really interested. American, they were more interested on what was happening in Europe. I was very surprised, and I had a lot of support from Magnum Foundation, Human Rights Watch, but not much about not much about the magazine and newspaper. And we did a report, come out 90 pages. We went to European Parliament and tried to, I wish I put on this project, and that was, finally I felt like what I'm doing is useful. I'm not doing all those myself. I'm not doing this for my name. I'm not on I don't, when I became a photographer, I didn't want to be famous, well known. No, I wanted to say something. But then you arrive another story of people trying to push you to make you this or that. It's not always not my cup of tea.
very good British phrase there. Well done.
But still, I think we it's very important to when you see something and it's dear to you, you can do something. And for me, I'm a photographer, but you can be activist, you can be all other politician, you can be all. But I think what I did in Greece was useful and important, and I'm very happy about that. Yes.
Okay. Do you have other projects in mind that you want to tackle? Other things that you're passionate about over the next few years? Or that you think, are there stories that, a bit like in Afghanistan, are there stories that you think aren't being told that?
I think we reach a point on a photography or media. I think we have to rethink the way we see the world. You know, the golden age of photography, 1960s, 70s, 80s, is over. And now, today, we have billion of pictures through Instagram, Facebook, whatever. And I think right now we are looking all those pictures. The words look like everywhere the same. And we are jumping from one picture to other picture, not related to each other. How we can understand of when we are connected, more we communicate, less we communicate, but we are a very confusion time right now. Maybe it's going to be better in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, I don't know. But we have to rethink to come up with idea of trying to subjectively find ways to tell the story of the planet. The way we were doing, I think, is over, and now we have to rethink about the way we are trying to tell the story of this planet.
Yeah.
And I try to do this. Essentially, I'm a little bit lost. But it's good lost.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
Do you see, I mean, I think that while the golden age is over, in terms of being a photographer, in terms of how we are able to connect to stories all over the world, how different people are able to tell stories. It could be the soldier who was next to Gaddafi when he was killed. He got the picture, right? The picture went up on YouTube. Everybody saw it. It's an exciting, connected world to be in. But I guess what you're interested in is how you then make sense of it.
Yes.
And you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very happy we are all connected, but at the same time, we are even more disconnected than connected. But how we make profit of this connection to make a better understanding each other, I think we should work on more. I don't know how we have to do this, but we have all the tools, all available for us. It never been like this in the history of human, the way we can connect to each other. You send a text message from here to Sydney, it takes you like less than a second. Before that was like months. But when it's coming back, we have to find how it's good and how we can make better understanding and accepting each other on this planet.
Okay, so I guess, yeah. So we're going to open it up for anyone who's got any questions. Zalmaï has been working as an independent photographer, which is rare, really, as a successful independent photographer for many years. Let's not say how many. Of experience working with magazines, with NGOs, for himself. So if anyone's got any questions for him, now is the time to ask them. Yes, please, this lady here at the front.
Thanks. Well, first of all, amazing photographs, and thank you very much for showing us those. I find myself in a dilemma because I entirely agree with you about how difficult it is to get a story across that you want to get across. I work with BARG, British and Irish Agencies Afghanistan Group, which is the coordinating body for NGOs from Ireland and the UK. And I've been involved with Afghanistan since 1977, so I know a lot of the positive stories too. And while I found that you were saying there was hope at the beginning, I didn't see hope in your pictures. And that may be because and seen things that are really rather dreadful, which you can see in Afghanistan, and not seen those things, or not thought they were as important or something, that are hopeful. I mean, there is a young cadre of Afghans now with education who really want to do something for the country. Okay, there is a lot of suffering still, there's a lot of insecurity right now, but there's also a lot of hope in the women's organizations who have fought for their rights, etc. And what we've tried to do is change the narrative on Afghanistan so it's more balanced. So we don't just have the war, we don't just have the military, but we show ordinary Afghan life too, and the positives and how they're working hard to improve their lives. So if you were to do another project in Afghanistan when you've recovered, I think that's what we would like you to do, and maybe we can talk about that afterwards.
Actually, yeah, actually, I would like to do, but I mean, we have to be careful of what is the hope. The hope of Afghanistan is everywhere, but visible as a tangible. You can take a picture. It's probably a little bit more difficult to, when you talk to people, it's easier to measure the hope, but visually, yes, you can. We can work on that, but how my job as a photographer is how to, when you feel something, how you translate this in a picture, and then how you can communicate it to people, other people can understand that. Of course, it's very challenging, it's difficult, but still it's possible. And yes, I mean,
Let's talk about it.
yeah.
Anyone else? Cheryl?
Well, my question is quite related to your statement, which is what would make you go back to Afghanistan again? What would encourage you to go and to spend time photographing there again? That's one thing. And the other thing is I'm very interested to know what it is to be a woman in Afghanistan. You know, what your life's like, and I can understand that it differs between being in Kabul and being in, you know, the countryside areas, and I'm really interested to know how women are, you know, finding their place again, and that fascinates me.
First of all, I think it's difficult for me to answer your question because I'm not a woman, and
I was gonna say.
and it's difficult.
No, of course it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think the situation in the Afghan woman, my experience.
Just from friends.
Yeah, no, no, it's much better than before, for sure. But we have to improve it much more, and we have a lot of work to be done. It's not over, but it's better than 10 years ago. And if we don't do anything, we can lose what we gained in the last 10 years. I think it's important to be aware of this. Yes, for sure.
And what would encourage you to go back and start to work again? Because your work from there is so powerful. Your work is the most powerful work that's come out of Afghanistan, of the people that actually live there in their real lives, and your relationship with them, and your affection for them, and your roots. And I wonder what, you know, it's sad to think that you're not going to go back.
I would like to go back, but I don't want to repeat what I did. You know, I mean, unfortunately, the story of Afghanistan is not over, and now the destiny of Afghan is belong to Afghan. It's a good thing. So we'll see how it's going to develop, but I'll be very pleased to do another story about the happiness of Afghans. But I'm waiting for that since a long time. I think it's what is going to bring me back in Afghanistan. I need some hope. I don't want to go back to tell the same stories.
Thank you, Cheryl. Anyone else? This guy's here's taking lots of notes at the front. Have you got anything you'd like to ask?
I'd like to ask, I mean, particularly when you were starting out, did you ever have to sort of tread that line between taking photos that you know you can sell and making a living of and taking the photos that you really, really wanted to? I mean, you touched upon it briefly, but I suppose you mean later on in your career when you sort of have a portfolio of work behind you that you know you can sort of stand up and say to an editor that these aren't the photos I want to be taking. But when you're just starting out, when you're new to the industry, how do you walk that line?
I can give you an advice. Just don't make any picture to please anyone. Just to be very honest with yourself. Be honest with what you see. And more you're honest and more you're true, I think the people can understand later. But you cannot have two sections of work. One is for yourself, one is to please people, to try to make living. If you can make both together, and being honest, I think probably it's going to take time because probably you're young and if you want to start. But I'm sure if you're honest, if you're true, you're going to make it. But don't think you can make a good picture or a bad picture, a sellable picture or a not good sellable. No, I think you have to trust yourself first, and you have to believe what you see and what is your feeling, and where are you, and the rest is other people gonna do for you.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Zalmaï. The book is stunning, and it's here. Are you gonna, if anyone wants it, will you sign it? Will you sell it? What's
I mean, they're here if you're interested to have a look, and
Yeah. Okay.
I'm here.
Fabulous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.